What if I told you that Africa wasn't feared because it was weak, but because it was powerful? Yep, you heard that right. Long before slavery, colonization, and systemic exploitation, Africa was a continent that thrived, a land of empires, warriors, gold, genius, and unity. But here's the untold truth: they don't want you to know this. They don't want you to know why Africa was always seen as a threat. Let's break it all down. Before anyone came to discover Africa, the continent was already vibbing on a whole different frequency. The kingdom of Mali was swimming in gold. Under Emperor Mansa Musa, yep, the richest man in history. Mali was the center of global wealth and Islamic scholarship. The great Zimbabwe stood tall with intricate stone architecture that left early explorers scratching their heads. The Benin Empire had streetlights, an organized army and diplomacy, and yes, we're talking 13th century. The Aksumite Empire in Ethiopia had its own coins, written scripts, and traded with Asia and the Mediterranean. This wasn't chaos, it was brilliance. Civilizations flourished. Trade routes buzzed. Systems of governance were structured. Africa was not developing, Africa was the development. Now let's talk muscle and might. Africa was home to some of the world's most elite warriors and military systems. The Zulu army, under Shaka Zulu, had a revolutionary military strategy that defeated entire European trained forces. The Nubians, known for their fierce archery and battle discipline, held off foreign invaders for centuries. The Dahomey Amazons, an all-female military unit, were not just brave. They were straight up fearless. They protected their kingdom like lionesses. The point? Africa was no pushover. The people were strong, resilient, and strategically dangerous, and that terrified outsiders. From the Ashanti in modern Ghana to the Hausa Fulani caliphates, Africa had well-structured governance systems. Elders were respected. Councils and kings made strategic decisions. Communities were built on respect, order, and collective responsibility. Before the scramble for Africa, the continent had its own political identity, strong, complex, and deeply rooted in African philosophy and spirituality. Here's where things get even crazier. Africa was sitting on a mountain of riches: gold in West Africa, diamonds in the Congo, oil in Angola and Nigeria, spices, ivory, iron, copper, timber, you name it. And this wasn't hidden. The first explorers didn't stumble upon barren lands. They landed in wealth, trade, and abundance, and it blew their minds. When the Portuguese, Dutch, British, and French began their expeditions, they expected to find savages. Instead, they found kings in gold regalia, organized cities, functional economies, sophisticated weaponry, literate people who spoke multiple languages. They were shocked and scared. How could these uncivilized people live like this? That fear flipped a switch in their minds. Here's the core of the matter. Africa was seen as a threat because it proved that black excellence could exist and even rival Europe. Africa had resources that could shift global power. Africa had knowledge systems and spirituality that were not dependent on foreign religion or validation. African societies proved that black people could rule, build, defend, and lead. That was the real threat. And what did fear breed? Cruelty. Colonial powers did the unthinkable. 1. Slavery. Over 12 million Africans were shipped across the Atlantic like cargo. 2. Colonial brutality. King Leopold II of Belgium killed over 10 million Congolese people for rubber and ivory. 3. Cultural erasure. Languages, religions, and traditions were systematically erased. 4. Land theft. Africans were pushed off their own lands, stripped of identity, dignity, and resources. Why? Because if Africa could rise, it could challenge the global order, so they crippled it by design. Generations of stolen wealth, decades of war, debt, and underdevelopment. A continent made to feel inferior when in fact it was too powerful to ignore. And here's the hardest pill to swallow. Many of Africa's current economic and political problems are not just due to colonization, but to the fear-driven systems designed to keep it suppressed. So what should Africans do? Here's the light at the end of the tunnel. Africa isn't broken, it's waking up. Countries are reclaiming their history and pride. Youth-led innovation is booming across Nigeria, Kenya, Rwanda, and more. The AfCFTA, African Continental Free Trade Area, is paving the way for a borderless African economy. African creators, artists, scientists and farmers are redefining the game. It's time to break the mental chains. We don't need to be validated. We need to build, reconnect and believe again. Africa's best days are ahead. Africa has always been great. What we need now is unity, vision and unapologetic action. We are the descendants of warriors, kings, queens, thinkers and builders. Let's stop waiting for the world to recognize our greatness. Let's show them. If this video opened your eyes, don't stop here. Hit that like button. Smash subscribe for more eye-opening African history and empowerment. Drop a comment. What shocked you the most about Africa's true legacy? Together, we're rewriting the narrative. Together, we rise.